Hey, it's your favorite McDonald's employee, garbage man, and president. And this is a message I fully support.
Oh, say, can you see my McDonald's early light? What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets that left the bombs bursting through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow, even better than when they did it for the Kansas City Chiefs. And live from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media.
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Votes
Of course that Kevin Show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be That Donald Show. We don't have that, so we have That Kevin Show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Just ahead, a very special edition of Decision 24. She's saving girls sports. Riley Gaines. She's a mom for liberty. Alexandra Bougher. The Babylon Bee endorses Kamala. And a patriotic new banger from Ann Wilson in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, the man who took out the garbage long before being a garbage man was cool. Here's the Kevin!
Welcome aboard, kids. It's not true.
What's not true?
I never worked as a garbage man.
Nobody said you worked as a garbage man. Said you took the garbage out.
Oh, yes, you did say I take the garbage out.
Yeah.
That is true. I've taken lots of garbage out.
Of course.
It's like the curse of being a male. I know we're not supposed to say this, but if you live in a house where there are boys and girls, the girls will always assume that the man will take the garbage out. It's one of those things. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't really know who the people that have problems with such things are, because I don't mind, for instance, taking the cars to get the oil changed. I don't mind being in charge of getting the grass cut. I don't mind whatever. And if my bride or if my daughter wanted to mow the grass with proper training on lawn equipment, sure, they'd be welcome to. It doesn't mean that I think of them less because I do certain things or because my bride does certain things. It's just kind of the way it is. And this is what I didn't understand this week. I didn't understand. I'll get to this in a second. Two big announcements first. We are kicking off this week the brand new Sugarfina candy holiday. Do you like Sugarfina candies? You know, the fancy candies in the little clear see-through boxes at the really nice candy shop? They are delish. My favorite, the peach jammy champagne candies that they sell in the little champagne bottle. Love those. Could eat like a whole bottle of them in one sitting. I'm not going to say whether or not I tried, but every year Sugarfina comes out with these amazing advent calendars that they're just filled with goodies. Every little day, 24 days leading up to Christmas, every day you open the one and there's a little morsel. They are flying off the shelves. Sugarfina can't keep them in stock. We have one for you. We have one for you. To register to win, you got to go to sugarfinaholiday.com. sugarfinaholiday.com. And we're not just giving one grand prize. We are giving away a grand prize that will have the Sugarfina Advent Calendar. And I think there's a bottle of the champagne peach jammy candies in there and a bunch of other stuff. It's all going to be wonderful. It's several $100s worth of product. That's the grand prize. But there's two other prizes that we're giving out as well, including the brand new celebrating 50 years with Hello Kitty for all the people that have the Hello Kitty in their life. I've got a daughter. Hello Kitty's big. That we're giving one of those away. We're going to draw the name at the end of the month. Go to sugarfina.com, sugarfinaholiday.com and register for your chance to win. And tell two people to do the same. Sugarfinaholiday.com, sugarfinaholiday.com. Every person that you tag on social media increases your chance of winning. So sugarfinaholiday.com, go there, register, and then tag two people on social media about it. Okay, the other thing we're doing, we are getting close, friends, to completing our task of helping 208 slaves be liberated this year with Christian Solidarity International. You've heard me talking about it. We are 41 slaves away, which means this last week we had more than 10 slaves get liberated. That means we're up to 167, 41 to go. $250 sets a human being free forever. And it gives them everything they need to start their life over again with the bag of hope. It's food, it's seed, it's tarps, blankets, bedding, protection from the weather, utensils to cook, clean, and fish with, and a she-goat that they can have milk and cheese and make little other goats and sell those to people. And it's a whole brand new start in life. Bringherhome.org is how you do that. But we need 41. We have 41 names left on the list. We've liberated 167 this year. Thank you. That's amazing. But we cannot let these 41 remain in slavery. And tonight, we have a matching challenge from someone who says, if you'll liberate a slave, they'll liberate a slave. So go to bringherhome.org and do your best. Bringherhome.org. The McCulloughs try to liberate a slave every single month. $250. It's the most wonderful thing that you've ever done. You'll feel so good about it. It'll literally change your life. And if you want to win the Advent calendar from the Sugarfina Candy Company, go to sugarfinaholiday.com and register for that drawing. All right, friends, my monologue tonight is very simple. We are in the last weekend before the election, and here's the bottom line. There is one team asking for your vote whose person at the top of the ticket is an everyday guy. He goes to McDonald's, he takes out the trash, he goes and gives his speeches, he does everything that needs to be done, and he's asking for your vote. He's saying very simply, here's the 12 things that Kamala broke, and these are the 12 things I'm going to do to fix it. And that's what he's going to do. And that'll be the end of it. But it's going to be an amazing thing. On the flip side of this, you've got someone who really does have a team around her who hates you. Why do I say that? Well, they said that jobs were going to be better. And the jobs report came out Friday, and they actually were negative 28,000 from where they had expected to be. They lost jobs in the final jobs report before the election. You'd think they'd be doing everything they could to get to positive territory on jobs. They hate children. They bathe in abortion's blood. They want to chop off body parts. They want to take kids away from parents. They just despise kids. There's just nothing about children that they like the way God made them. They don't have any real appreciation for the law. They've tried to skirt the election law already in Pennsylvania, got taken to court, had to go back and repair that. They have trouble with the truth, and they have trouble with the words they use to describe you. And here's what I mean by that. And it's not nice. About a week ago, the candidate herself said you were a fascist. A few days later, her running mate said you were a Nazi. A few days after that, her boss said you're garbage. A day or two after that, her number one surrogate, billionaire Mark Cuban, looked into the camera and said that every woman that supports the other guy is weak and unintelligent. This doesn't have any relationship to reality. And at the end of the day, what happens next Tuesday is of supreme importance. You can elect a guy who said, it's broken and I'm going to come fix it. Or you can choose to send back to Washington the same group of people who just called you fascists, Nazis, garbage, and weak and unintelligent. It's not a tough choice, I don't think. But that's what the nation will measure on Tuesday. I hope that you'll be with us on the Salem News Channel for coverage. I'll be anchoring part of it, and we will see you then. Kevin McCullough, big show straight ahead. Hero of saving women's sports, Riley Gaines, joins me after this break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, very glad to have you with us. There are a handful of people. In fact, I get asked this question regularly. Kev, if you were to have dinner with 5 human beings and you could pick them from anywhere in history, who would you pick? And it's changed from time to time. Oftentimes, Winston Churchill is included in my list. Other historical figures, I would love to have dinner with Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior. It would be awesome to sit and dine with him. But in modern eras, there have been people that have stood up courageously for things that they believe in. And my next guest is someone that I believe fits that description. In fact, I think when this period of history is going to be written, she's going to be talked about for doing something rather heroic. And that was to say, enough is enough. Men and women are different. We are created that way by our Creator, and it's not wrong to say that. Her name is Riley Gaines, and she was a championship-level swimmer for the University of Kentucky until she had a championship wrongfully taken from her. She now joins us. Riley, thanks for being here. My listeners have known of your story since the very beginning. In fact, before your story, we were tracking with the Connecticut girls track athletes that were losing scholarships in Connecticut high school opportunities, and then there were girls that were losing places on their softball teams in Southern California at high schools because boys identified as girls and they wanted to play and they couldn't cut it on the varsity baseball team, so they went and played softball. And then came the swimming, the year of swimming with NCAA. And Leah Thomas, and you entered that story towards the end of that season when really I think something just dreadfully unjust happened. For the sake of my listeners, can you recap that story for us? We've never heard it from your lips.
Absolutely. And first, let me just tell you how thrilled I am to be on with you. I know you've had some of my teammates and now even some of my colleagues on your show before to talk about this. And really, you were one of the first, before it had become an issue that was overly politicized in the way that it was, and even some people, even some elected officials with R's by their names were scared to talk about this. There you were, and so I just wanted to take the time to thank you for highlighting the absurdity, like you said, that this country has been plagued with, really. But yes, let me just give a very brief background on me. Never a position I wanted to be in, let me tell you that. This is never where I saw myself. This is not the plans that I made for me. But of course, the quickest way to make God laugh in your face is to make plans for yourself. He very clearly had different plans for me.
He has a sense of humor that way sometimes, yes. I
know, I'm learning every day. But my senior year, we were geared up, ready to go to our national championships. But about 3 weeks before, the NCAA announced that Leah Thomas, who is, of course, actually Will Thomas, who swam 3 years on the men's team as a less than mediocre male swimmer, decided to switch to the women's team, where he would ultimately then win a national title at this same NCAA championships. He and I raced each other in the 200 free, which almost impossibly enough resulted in a tie, meaning that we went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second. But to answer your question of, I guess, how I found myself here, what really thrusted me over the edge into no longer being willing to wait for someone else to say something, because that's what I was doing, really, truthfully, was after we tied. We go back behind the awards podium where the NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself, again, him towering over me. And the official says, "Great job, you two, but you tied, and we don't account for ties. We only have one trophy, and we're going to give that trophy to Leah. Sorry, Riley, you don't get one." And that was it. That was the moment when, that was the pivotal point where I had, like you said, I mean, enough is enough. I mean, reducing everything we had worked our entire lives for, down to a photo op to validate the feelings and the identity of a man. That's when I just wasn't willing to lie anymore.
Yeah. Well, and there's multiple ways that this is unjust, and there's obviously the issues of having to change and be around one another in a disclothed kind of way. That I think, and people will have different opinions about that, but I just think that there's no room for that morally in our culture, especially when we are dealing with sexual assault and sex crimes to the degree that we are. And we've worked so hard to try to make our daughters and wives feel safe. I'm the father of a young lady that is coming up, and she's going to have reasons to, want to compete and so forth. I want her to have safe places to be when she is in those circumstances. But that aside, the biology of this, if people didn't know about Leah Thomas, he was enormously tall. I think he was 6'4". I think he was close to the same height that Michael Phelps was. He had a wingspan that was twice or three times what most of the girls were that he was competing against. And in terms of leverage, when you're talking about propelling a body through water, it's all based on muscle. It's all based on ability, and his bone structure and his muscles were just, he was a different species almost. Yes, he was a human being, but he did not belong in the pool with those of you that had been, as females working towards this goal. Did the NC2A, did any of the colleges, did anybody that you were speaking to acknowledge the biological difference?
Not at any point. At any point over the time that, of course, when Thomas was allowed to start competing, when most of the country found out about Thomas at that national championships, or even since in the 2 years following, at no point has the NCAA, I guess, really even individual universities, we have an entire political party, at least in terms of elected representation, who has at no point acknowledged the very real biological differences that exist between men and women.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you described, of course, there's things like wingspan and height, but even things like, it sounds so silly when you say it out loud, but even things like throat size. Men on average have a 40% larger throat. That's a huge advantage when you're playing a sport where you're grasping for air. Of course, his lungs were larger. He had a larger lung capacity. His heart size was bigger. All of these things are crucial to success in our sport, a sport where we work years and years to shave off hundredths of a second, right? Yeah. There's not a lot of wiggle room here, and we're competing against someone who, no amount of training, no diet, no sleep schedule, no nothing you can do can overcome the differences that exist.
And you excelled in your sport. You were one of the top in the country. In fact, had he not been in that race, wouldn't the time that you tied him with, wouldn't that have set a record for the 200 or come close to it?
Yeah. It was certainly within my, I mean, I'm an SEC record holder, 5-time SEC champion, 2-time Olympic qualifier.
It's like, and I remember hearing you before Congress say that your husband was also a pretty good swimmer, didn't win any medals, didn't do any of the stuff that you accomplished, and that on any day of the week he could kick your butt in a race. What you were pointing out was that these differences matter. And the reason that Title IX exists, the reason that we've set up women's sports, the reason that girls need that space is because there's so much good that comes into their lives when they are able to excel and have that opportunity.
next. That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. So honored to have Riley Gaines joining us. You may know her as the face of the women's sports controversy. I mean, there's been lots of people that have said, hey, this isn't fair. Very few have put their toe on the line and said, I'm not letting go of this until we fix it. And that's been Riley's approach. The Independent Women's Forum has helped champion that message as well. I think Kelsey Bowler was the first person to tell me about the girls running track in Connecticut and boys taking scholarships away from them. And from that day forward, I've just said, this is unjust and it has to come to an end. And Riley, to that end, there are some lawsuits working their way through the systems right now. I think some of your former teammates have banded together. I think some of the UPenn teammates banded together.
If you compare now to 2 years ago, I mean, it's like we're not even talking about the same issue because people have found their voice.
Yeah.
People are more bold. They're more unapologetic in saying that's a man. It's kind of like the emperor wears no clothes parable, which I guess is quite literal in this sense.
I was about to say, in that locker room, that was a piece of the story. But don't you also think that fathers, like, there's something ingrained in me that if you had been my daughter, like hell would have frozen over before I would have tolerated it.
We have seen a major failure on behalf of parents, I think. I get parents who reach out to me every single day who say, hey, thanks for doing what you do. This is happening to my daughter in this school district. Can you say something I can't because I work a corporate job and I can't, lose my job. But is this something that you can do? Which of course I've made this my mission. Absolutely. But it breaks my heart when I read.
It'd be so much more powerful if the parents were the ones saying it.
Yeah. It's like, do I have to care about your kid more than you do? But we're seeing teams forfeit, which is huge. This is a movement that is now in motion, and I call this movement, I've labeled it as Project Boycott, with emphasis being on boy. So we've seen 2 high school teams in New Hampshire, even just within this month, who forfeited a team with a male who was playing girls high school soccer. We've seen 5 now. Mountain West Conference women's volleyball teams forfeit against San Jose State University for having a male on their team, taking a scholarship and a roster spot and a travel spot from a hardworking, deserving woman. We've seen even just this week, we saw 275 professional golfers involved with the LPGA sign on to a letter urging and imploring the LPGA to remove a man who is just qualified for a Q school, which is one step closer to qualifying for the LPGA golf tour. I mean, really crazy stuff. And so, yes, we would have not seen any of those things 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We didn't see those
All
things
right.
2 years
So a lot of this came down the pike in the last 4 years because the day that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were sworn into office, they sent an edict to the educational institutions across the country, mostly the public schools, that federal funds would be withheld from those local districts for things like giving poor kids breakfast and those types of things if they did not enforce a gender ideology curriculum that is in essence mandated that what you went through at the University of Kentucky in your experiences with Leah Thomas, that be mandated in schools across the country from elementary to high schools. It was a blackmail to the school districts. It was a complete betrayal of parents and families across this country. But I think that's really where a lot of the fear came, that the government was now going to take a position on this. So I'm just real quick in the final minute that we have with you. What's your thought about how important it is for people to vote on November 5th?
I mean, I can't stress the importance enough. there's so much at stake, right? Whether on all of the issues as it pertains to national security, the economy. I mean, the list goes on. But in specifically talking about this issue, the UN just released a study that said I think the number is 1,055 women have had medals taken away from men. That's just what they've been able to track and keep a record of. So don't believe that narrative that is being pushed, and understand a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote against your daughter's future.
This issue is going to no doubt be still fought in the days to come. Thank you for spending time with us this time, and please come back. We want to be a champion for you and for what you're doing, because my daughter and all my friends' daughters are worth fighting for. And I want to keep fighting a good fight until we know for sure that they have what they need. But thank you for all that you've done.
No doubt about it. Thank you. And be sure to tell your daughter I say hi.
We'll do that. Riley Gaines, thank you so much. Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
As we've mentioned, a lot of focus on women in the vote as we are coming down the last few stretches of the race here. I know it seemed like 4,298,817 days. It actually hasn't been. It's just been a little over 2 years. But it has felt that way. Mailman is back with us. She is the director of the Independent Women's Law Center with the Independent Women's Forum. And she was just with us about a week ago to talk about some court cases that are coming before the Supreme Court this next go around. But May, one of the reasons that Independent Women's Forum exists, one of the reasons why I insist upon having you guys on my show every week, is because I feel like that the women's vote on Tuesday is going to be of keen importance. And I want to ask you, from the messaging that you've seen as a mom, as someone who works with independent women every day, how do you assess what the offers, the marketing that the Kamala Harris and Donald Trump teams are putting out there for the female vote, and how effective do you assess they are being at getting those points across? And is anyone being particularly successful in attracting them?
I think from the Kamala Harris side, we see abortion, right? Abortion, but also just identity. As a woman, I think Michelle, when she's yelling at the men, telling them to vote, she's saying, but do it for the women, that there's just something about being a woman that should align with voting Democrat. It's not policy-based. It is just vibes-based. Some amount of, support Kamala Harris because she's also a woman. So you've got abortion and vibes. And then on the Republican side, I think there's a huge security push, right? So you want safe communities. There's an affordability push. You want to be able to afford your groceries, afford your home. And then there's some things that don't work as well. I think when President Trump gets out there and says, I'm going to be your protector, I think what he means by that is I'm going to have good policies and I'm going to have safe communities. But what women want is to be listened to be understood. And I think that type of messaging really doesn't work. So, you've got pros and cons, I think, on each side. Well,
you saw Kamala Harris come out and basically accuse him of taking women's agency away from themselves. And I don't know, May, maybe it's just because I hang out with really smart women, my bride, people like you that have great intellect and kind of understand what the English language means. You don't have to talk about the significance of the passage of time. You just understand how to use a clock. And I think that sometimes the identity and the pandering that she has put into this is almost an insult to the women that are being asked to vote for. Is that an oversimplification?
So, yeah, it's been this way with the Democrats.
And you can say so if it is. I'm not. There's no right or wrong answer.
For a long time, The problem, though, is there is something about women that enjoys community, right? That we are empathetic, and so while on one hand it is denying agency to say all women think like this or should be like this, on the other hand, women don't want to be seen as racist. They don't want to be seen as other, right? We want to be part of the crowd. And so there's something there. Underlying the bad messaging, there is something there. And I think that's the challenge for Republicans. It's not a Trump issue. Unmarried women, especially, have not been voting Republican for a very long time. There's an identity issue. There is women, especially young women, especially unmarried young women, don't identify as Democrats. And that is not to deny women agency. It is that there is safety in numbers. And that is why I think Independent Women's Forum is such, that we exist, is that you can see that there are other women who think like you, that talk like you, that live like you, that are Republicans. And we are happy, and we have really strong basis for how we think and why we think the way we do. So I think that there is something about just breaking the mold that's challenging for women, not in a deny agency way, but just in a reality way.
Yeah. Well, and my bride was with me when he made that comment, and she did not take the pledge for protection as anything other than what she would hope her husband would do if a burglar broke into our house. Like there is a desire for a safe existence to be offered. And you can't have safety when 13,000 convicted murderers are being let into the country without knowledge of who they are or where they are. You can't have safety in apartment complexes that are being taken over by Venezuelan gangs. I mean, I tend to think that women can walk and chew gum at the same time. I just sometimes wonder if the Democrats have that same respect for the people that they claim to be on the lookout for. Because when you talk about denying moms the safety of making sure that your daughters are going to a school where they're not going to be assaulted in the locker room because men are being allowed to be in there, I think there's context for that she ignores, and maybe he's clumsy in how he's putting it forward. But I think that women like to have guys looking out for them and being respectful and wanting to offer that. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me ask you about a couple of the things. There's a brand new poll out from Michigan that says that the economy, immigration, healthcare, abortion, and then U.S. policy in Gaza. Now, this is a Michigan-based poll, but economy, inflation, immigration, taxes, healthcare, and abortion in that order. Is that how you sense women will process their voting, the choice that they pull in the voting booth on Tuesday?
I mean, I hope so, because there is no choice. There is no, anything else if you don't have the resources to provide for yourself and your family. Economy, inflation should be number one. The question is voting a right brain activity? Is it emotional, or is it a left brain activity? Is it logical? And I think it's different for different people. And so you could say logically, these are my top issues. This is what I care about. And logically, President Trump aligns with that. And so then the question is, who's reaching the right brain? In case this is a right brain activity, who's reaching the emotion? And so I think that's a lot what the Democrats are going for, vibes, like I said.
Right.
And I think that Republicans do have that message. That's just what needs to break through.
What about the emotion of looking at a grocery bill that's $580 when it used to cost you $280?
And that's what I wish I would see.
Yeah.
Yeah, on TV is moms having to put food back on the shelf.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Probably already know that Trump is literally Hitler, but what you may not know is just how similar the two fascist dictators really are. They both wore pants. Hitler had a mustache, and Trump probably could have a mustache if he didn't shave for a few days. Both breathed air. Both ate food. Did I mention that they both breathed air? That's getting scary. Hitler was an artist attempting to paint masterpieces, and Trump was in the masterpiece, work of art, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. This is no accident. If you rearrange the letters in Trump while eliminating the U, M, P, and adding H, I, L, and E, it spells Hitler. And finally, both were constantly called Hitler by the media. Case closed.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from Nostradamus.
Of course, that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, she's a mom fighting for liberty, Alexandra Bougher. The Babylon Bee has endorsed Kamala Harris. And before we're done, Ann Wilson with another hit in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, as our Decision 24 special continues, he gladly volunteered to provide personal comfort to the weak and unintelligent female Trump supporter. Here's
Yeah, and tell me you wouldn't. Just right. Okay, let's do the news. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. As we close out Decision 24 on this special edition, the Kamala Harris campaign, we note, had a very rough final week in the lead up to the election this coming Tuesday. Campaigning as the candidate of joy, the sitting VP started off the week referring to her opponents as fascists. Her running mate followed the next day by calling them Nazis. Her boss followed suit the day following that, calling them garbage. And her billionaire surrogate, Mark Cuban, claimed the female supporters of their opponents are weak and stupid. But like so many who project their own foibles, he took off the dress and backed away from the mirror. Assignment Desk Weekend decided to ask many of our female contributors, most all of which have been selected to be part of our broadcast because of their high levels of intelligence, if they would be willing to share with us their thoughts about Cuban's obvious statements. They all promised they would get back to us as soon as their husbands gave them permission to do so. Hungry to be back in the spotlight, no pun intended, Chris Christie, pictured here after just having bodied a complete dozen Krispy Kremes, said that Cuban, quote, doesn't think before he talks sometimes. And he should know, as he continued, saying the former New Jersey governor, because I say stupid things all the time, and my wife tells me the exact same thing. Tim Walz, in the middle of all of this happiness and joy this week, accused Elon Musk of, quote, being gay. Assignment Desk Weekend would like to ponder this for a second because we're always confused about how people who push so hard to have gay everything be advanced somehow still feel like it's some sort of slur against people to call them gay. That previous aside from the Assignment Desk Weekend body of wonder. Anyway, in an attempt to insult the world's wealthiest man, the vice presidential candidate did just that, hurling the supposed insult. And this despite the fact that Musk has fathered at least 11 children that we know of. He did so also in spite of the fact that no one on planet Earth believes Walls is straight, except for his manly, macho hunting skills. And finally, Jerry Seinfeld has taken to criticizing schools that are giving the day off after the election for, quote, distressed students. Assignment Desk Weekend would like to point out that the level of distressed anxiety that a student would experience to qualify for such treatment is almost impossible to measure. You do know that, right? Kids will just lie to get out of school. We're also confident that Trump supporters would never, ever consider taking the day off just to celebrate. Or would they? For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. Make sure you go out and vote.
I'm Seth Dillon, CEO of the Babylon Bee. While other fake news organizations like the Washington Post and the LA Times refuse to save democracy, we here at the Babylon Bee are proud to do our part. Today, we've decided to officially endorse communist Kamala Harris for president. Why Kamala? Well, we'd be here all day if I listed all the reasons, but I'll name a few. To begin with, she shot straight to the top because of her intellect. Smart lady. She's the first person in history to win a primary without receiving a single vote. That's impressive. She's a person of color. Indian, I think. She's a phenomenon. She gave Drew Barrymore a hug, an act that symbolized her willingness to wrap her arms around the country and give us all a hug whenever Republicans make us feel sad. She was such a popular vice president that over 12 million people hiked hundreds of miles to cross our southern border to vote for her without ID in this election. She has a melodic and soothing voice, especially when she laughs. I can listen to her laugh for hours. Most importantly, though, she is not Donald Trump. Wow. How can you put into words the greatness that is Kamala Harris? She reminds us to look forward to what can be, unburdened by what has been. And she understands, perhaps better than anyone else, the significance of the passage of time. She knows, as all wise leaders do, that there is great significance to the passage of time. Each minute that passes takes us from the present into the future. We're only here, right now, in this moment, because other moments, like the one that just went by, have passed. What could be more significant than that? We are grateful that when America is on the brink of losing its democracy, the person standing strong against the looming threat of fascism is a woman as accomplished, intelligent, joyful, and non-white as Kamala Harris. And so we join Eminem, Megan Thee Stallion, the Insane Clown Posse, and many other great thought leaders by proudly endorsing Kamala Harris for president.
Don't miss out. The annual Christmas pageant tickets are on sale now.
They're advertising it on TV now?
The pageant is an especially big deal this year. It's the 75th anniversary.
I want to give special mention to Grace for volunteering to direct it.
You did what?
Oh no. Did somebody die?
It's worse than that, son.
It's going to be the best Christmas pageant ever.
Oh no. It's the Hermans. Now. The Hermans are absolutely the worst kids in the history of the world.
What'd they do now, dear? Break another window?
Set something on fire?
Steal your lunch and then punch you for not having any candy? No, even worse. We're gonna be in your Bible play.
Herdmans in church.
Oh boy.
We take the pageant seriously. It's about community and tradition. What do you all suggest, that I kick the Herdmans out of the church? Yes.
I want to be Mary, and Ralph wants to be Joe.
And the angel of the Lord?
Ow!
The Herdmen shouldn't be here. They're a poor influence. You don't look like any Mary I've seen before.
Don't touch him. I'm happy to take over the part at any time.
I can't just kick him out.
I thought you all might be interested in one of my stops.
You never told me you visited the Herdmans.
I got the biggest ham for you guys. Is your mom home?
Not when the sun's up. What if the Hermans ruin this for you?
They probably will, but it's not about me.
Jesus was born for the herdmans as much as he was for us.
We'll be missing the whole point of the story if we turn them away.
Well, that's a pageant I'd actually like to see.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to that Kevin show with Kevin McCullough.
All right, we continue our countdown towards the election 2024. You know, it's just a few days away now, and I am so excited about the fact that we're at the end of this 4,298,817 day journey. That's how long it seems like it's gone. It's only gone a couple of years, but it seems like it's been longer. But in the process of the aftermath of 2020, kind of the lack of the red wave in most of the election of 22. There was a red wave. It was at the school district level across the country. We got a lot of school districts flipped in 22. But in the last 4 years, there have been an increasing number of women that have said, we're not going to sit and be a victim to what happened in 2020 again. And so what you've had is different groups pop up in different states, starting state chapters, starting county chapters, starting local chapters of these different groups that are then, acclimating, reaching out and activating women to be involved. And one of the reasons why I've had so many women on this show at this microphone is because I feel like that their voice is really vital. And I feel like what is being said from Kamala Harris is not representative, by and large, of the majority of women that I know and interact with on any given time. So that's why tonight we had Riley Gaines. Tonight we're going to talk with my next guest momentarily. But I just believe that the female vote is vital. And I think that there is something to it that the press is missing. And we'll get into that. My next guest is Alexandra Bougher. She is one of those local chapter heads of a group called Moms for Liberty in the Bergen County region of the great state of New Jersey, and she joins me now. Alex, thank you for coming on That Kevin Show. Good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm always curious when I run into people like you that probably didn't always see yourself in some sort of political role. What was the motivation for you to say, we need a chapter of Moms for Liberty where I'm at?
I definitely did not see myself in this role. I am an aesthetician by nature, so I love to work with people, but nutrition, skincare, things like that. And I do have 3 kids, and my oldest one, who will be 24, I honestly didn't notice too much in her school experience, although she was kind of an easy child. Straight A's, captain of cheer. She didn't really show us anything that was going on. She kind of ran her own school career, if you would. She was an easy kid. And we didn't really hear too much from her. Maybe in around 11th grade during the presidential election, there was some comments. And I would say, well, where did you learn that from? And she was like, well, my teacher said that. But, she was of the age where she could stand up for herself. So it wasn't too concerning. It was when our middle daughter, during COVID, was in kindergarten, and obviously all of this stuff started to happen, and we would sort of get a glimpse into their day-to-day life with school. And I'm like, hold on one second. Why are you being taught that? And why did they say that? And why are they treating you that way? And we actually have a wonderful elementary school, but it definitely was shocking seeing the day-to-day teachings, and kind of opened our eyes up to, do they need to be in school 7 hours a day? Who are these people teaching our children, right? I don't even know anything about them. The school just said, this is the teacher, and I'm supposed to trust them. And so that's when I said, okay, wait a minute. I need to sort of figure out what my rights are as a parent, what I'm allowed to ask, and I need to put both my feet in the door. So that's what got me started with Moms for Liberty. Well, and since that time, you have gotten very active. In fact, you've
traveled around your area supporting candidates in various races. And I have been at a couple of them with you, and I've seen you bring your kids with, and I think that's great. I think we need to do more of that. My high school freshman this year is following this election like it's a Harry Potter novel. Like he's just like following it to the nth degree every day, walking in from school saying, "What happened today? What do I need to know today?" I'm like, all right, cool off a little bit. Like you've got some time to work this into your life, but but I'm glad that he's taking initiative. Being a mom and having kids that you love and growing them up in a world that's by most definitions pretty dangerous right now. You're being pitched hard by the Kamala Harris and the Donald Trump campaigns. They both have messaging that they're trying to get you, a suburban mom, to vote in their favor because of. As you have observed the messaging that they have put out, and I'm not trying to be partisan, I've given you no inclination on how to answer this question. What do you think the messages have been? And do you think that they are being effective, not just for you, but for other women that you're interacting with? And why or why not? Let's start with, what do you think the messages are that they are trying to get into your head as they're asking for your vote here down the stretch?
Well, I'll start with Kamala Harris. And basically the message that we're gathering from them is that women don't have a voice. Women's rights don't matter. They should be trampled on by men that want to enter their sports arena or enter their locker rooms. The changes to Title IX, right? That just shows you right there that they don't respect these girls and these women. They are just saying like, well, you've worked your whole life for this. But now we're going to have this man who's clearly built differently than you, right? You mentioned Riley Gaines before. I actually read her book, and she was on our Moms for Liberty book club. And she actually really went into how much work goes into, I want to say, I'm probably saying this wrong, but like shaving off less than a second, right?
Yeah,
how much
tenths
work
of
goes
a second.
into,
Yeah, it takes
a
year to shave off that much
a
time.
year, and how many different things that you may have to change and you may plateau, and how much work goes into that, and how all of a sudden this guy who really wasn't doing well on his own, the men's swimming team, said, you know what, I'm going to identify as a woman now. And now, because he's built differently, right, he's just going to jump in the water and just blow their times away. And so that's what they're teaching these young little girls, young women, and women. And that's the message that you're getting from that campaign. Okay. The Trump campaign, I think it's go out there. You can be whatever you want to be. We're going to protect you. We're not going to put up with this. We're going to protect our girls because we respect them. Men and women are built differently, and we need to really, they both have such important roles, and we can't be the same thing, right? We need balance. Right? The men are good at certain things, or they're built a certain way, and the women the same way. And there needs to be that balance and harmony. And that's what makes, each person so beautiful. And I think the fact that, the Harris want to say it's toxic masculinity, it's not toxic to want to protect the women in your life. It's not toxic to protect your daughter, your sister, your mother, your grandmother. So
here's the challenge with that. And they even were talking about that late this week. He used the word protect. He even went as far as to say, we'll protect the ones who don't even want us to protect them. We'll make sure that they're protected too. Kamala Harris took offense at that and said that he's trying to rob agency of women. Now, when we're talking about the types of protections that he can offer as a president, you're talking about keeping murderers and rapists from invading our southern border. You're talking about getting a handle on crime and not defunding the police the way she did.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York,
Welcome back
Kevin
to Times
McCullough.
Square. It's Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show, 300 radio stations, Salem News Channel, BizTV, Pluto TV, and we're in the Samsung Smart Tracks now. So wherever you get your TV, just look for Salem News Channel, and thank you for taking us with you. Alexandra Bougher is my guest, and you really should see her in person. She's this impressive. I can tell you're fairly athletic. I know you had a cast on your leg for a little while this last year. I don't know what you did, but I hope everything's good now. But when you're interacting with your daughters at political events, I've just had a chance to see you a little bit, but you're such a good mom. You're so committed. You're filling their life with good stuff. And it seems to me that there's almost this insistence by the Harris campaign that you don't exist, that conscientious moms don't exist, that they don't matter, that they're not out there, that the only thing that Kamala Harris thinks being for a woman looks like is to make sure that you have abortion on demand up and until and through the end of pregnancy, to make sure that you kill your kid. Alex, is she connecting with women on that message?
She's not connecting. She's not connecting with any women that I would be friends with. Personally, or anyone that we associate with. And, you do want to associate people with the same values and morals that you have. You don't have to be the same person, but at least the same values and morals. And I think that's really important. They put so much importance on this abortion matter that they don't even realize that they're taking away these other rights, as we spoke about before, just with like the locker rooms and women's sports. And they just focus on this one thing. And, let's be honest. I mean, I know everyone has different feelings with abortion, but they lie up there. They'll say, they're having full-time abortion. They'll say, oh, that's not happening. Yes, it is. We can pull up a list of states where it's happening. Yeah. And that is murder. That's not
they
the
tried to
woman's
fact
body.
check. They tried to fact check Trump on that. And he was actually right. I think there's currently 6 states that allow it through the end of pregnancy. And Virginia was the most vocal about it when they said, well, we're gonna allow the baby to sit on the table and we'll talk to the mom about it, and we'll let her decide. I mean, this is infanticide, and it doesn't in all honesty, it doesn't even impact that many women. Like you're talking about, if you maintain the exceptions that Trump holds to, rape, incest, and life of the mother, not health of the mother. Health of the mother is a big fat loophole that they use to throw all kinds of stuff into. But if you take the 3 exceptions that 90% of America will allow for it to exist, that's a winning position that most people hold. Demanding that you can kill a baby after it's been born and starts breathing air, Americans aren't down with that.
They're not down with that. And, they go back and forth with this message, my body, my choice. Well, it wasn't that way with vaccinations. It wasn't that way with masking, but all of a sudden with this one, it is. They just pick and choose what they want to believe in and what they want to push. And the American women, the majority of us, we're not going to stand for it. You're not going to inject us or our children with anything we don't want. You're not going to mask us or our children with anything we don't want. The boys are not going to be in our daughters' locker rooms. They're not going to be on their teams. And that's just the way that it is. We're not going to stand up for it.
What has been over the course of this campaign, because we're so close to the end of it, what has been your observation about how active moms like you are starting to become? Is this a real movement that is going to be more vocal and hold people more accountable in the days to come?
Sure. We are a huge movement. We are a force to be reckoned with. Moms for Liberty started in January of 21. I started Bergen County in March of 21. And since then, there are thousands of members. People are showing up to Board of Ed meetings. They're getting involved. They're, like I said, they're standing up for their children. They're not going to back down. And this is something maybe it took, a few weeks or a month to sort of get started, but we are like a fast snowball now. There's no stopping us. Yeah.
So if someone's watching or listening tonight and they're thinking, I've never thought I would be doing that kind of stuff, but I think maybe I could do this. What would you suggest to people that are just checking it out for the first time?
I would say just talk to somebody. I mean, if you go to momsforliberty.org, there's a map You'll find your state, you'll find your county. If there's not one in your county, although there usually is by now, but if, it'll send you to the next county and you'll talk to us. It'll give you an email, give you a cell phone. Just talk to us, come to a meeting, see what it's like. We're just your normal, everyday Americans. Some are stay-at-home moms, some are lawyers, some are doctors. We have many teachers. I can't even begin to tell you how many teachers we have that do not want to teach their children, some of the stuff that they're being forced to teach, and they want to take a stand. So I would say that, you don't have to make this huge commitment. I would say just make a phone call.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
All right, welcome back. It's Kevin McCullough from Times Square. And again, if you would like to win the brand new Sugarfina Advent Calendar, and these things are just gorgeous. They've got their traditional Advent calendar, which is stocked full of yummy little Sugarfina candies. And they've got the 50th anniversary Hello Kitty Advent calendar as well, which is in very rare supply. You can get both of them by going to sugarfinaholiday.com, but you can also, and this is the important part, is when you go to sugarfinaholiday.com, you should register to win, because we are giving 3 sets of Advent calendars and Sugarfina prize packages away at the end of this month. So go to sugarfinaholiday.com and just register. There's 3 different prize packages there that we're giving away. One of them is the Hello Kitty. One of them is the traditional Advent calendar, and there's one that's in between, kind of a hodgepodge collection of yummies. But check all of that out. All right. I want to say thank you, because this week we had someone step up and say, you know what, Kev, every slave that you liberate from CSI this weekend, we're going to match slave for slave. We're going to make sure that we get as many of these 208 ladies home for Christmas. Our goal is that not a single one of those 208 names of slaves that were on the list at the start of the year are still in slavery by the end of the year. And we have 41 women that we have yet to liberate, which means 167 have been liberated. Thank you. That is very, very, we are very grateful for that. But if you're just joining us and you're saying, Kevin, I'm hearing you talking about slavery, what are you talking about? Well, we're talking about women who were taken as young girls as slaves during the Sudanese Civil War. The world powers came in, U.S. and others came in, and they stopped the Civil War about 15 years ago. They divvied up the land. South Sudan became the youngest country on the planet, but they had not solved the problem of the 185,000 human slaves that the northern Sudanese had taken. CSI, Christian Solidarity International, my partner and I, and you, working together over the last several years, we have liberated 5,000 over the course of the many years that we've been working together with CSI. CSI has seen more than 125,000 of those 185,000 released. That leaves, in our estimation, we believe there's somewhere between 38 and 45,000 slaves left, and some of their children. And we are working diligently each year to bring some home. There are 41 that we have not reached this year. There are 41 that have not been given their ticket out of slavery, and we need to speak for them. What happens if you give the $250 gift to liberate the slave? Well, that $250 gift goes primarily towards supplying what's called the Bag of Hope. The Bag of Hope has everything the former slave will need when they reestablish their life in South Sudan. They go to a recovery camp. They get medical help, psychological help. They get to interact with others who have been in slavery for similar periods of time. Then they get a whole bag of goodies. Grain for an entire year's worth of food, seed for another entire year's worth of grain to plant and to grow, fishing utensils, cleaning utensils, cooking utensils, tarps and blankets, all kinds of things that help them create a new life back in their homeland of South Sudan. And then the best part of the Bag of Hope is that they get a she-goat, a little baby, running around with them. You can use that to create milk, other goats to sell. It's a micro enterprise kind of job starter for them that gives them the ability to self-sustain. And it's just amazing. And it's helping women like Bougher. Take a listen to her story right here.
It took me 15 days to walk the journey back to South Sudan. But that marked a passage for my life, from the horrors of slavery to a future filled with hope. Taken when I was just a child, snatched away literally from my mother's arms, my dreams of happiness were shattered as my living nightmare began. And suddenly, I found myself a slave. My slave master stripped me of my Christian faith and even my name, and he stamped on me instead a Muslim name and identity, and the beginning of a life of endless work. My worst day in slavery is still a vivid memory. My master sent me for a very difficult job of fetching water. The jugs are very heavy, and the distance is very far. When I was on my last trip to the well for that day, a group of Arab men approached the well and began calling out to me. And then they raped me. My master refused to accept my story and even blamed me for what ended up happening. And he did so even though he had raped me so many times before that. Because I have no idea of my birthday or even hometown. When I arrived to South Sudan, I was very blessed to be able to join a community of 150 other former slaves. And as I am now pregnant with a child that was conceived from my abusers, it's my hope to be a loving and caring mother. I hold no remorse against this child because I am so grateful. I wish to send thanks to God and thanks to those of you who cared about me and brought me safely home. And I would like to ask that you not stop until every captive is freed, fed, and healed. My name is Bougher Garang, and because of your faithfulness, I was freed in November of 2023. And this is my story.
1 year ago this month, friends, we got Bougher home to South Sudan, which she had not seen for most of her life. But the rejoicing was deep and rich, and it was wonderful. 888-342-1010. We can have that same outcome in another woman's story today. 888-342-1010. There are 41 waiting, hoping, begging, praying, pleading that we will get them home. 888-342-1010 or bringherhome.org. Bringherhome.org. That's bringherhome.org or 888-342-1010.
Ready or not, we'll be right back.